Hi, this is Shondell Joyce. Welcome to Beginning Acrylic Painting. This is a typical palette that I use with cadmium yellow light, cadmium red medium, cerulean blue, titanium white, and I'm mixing the ultramarine. So if you prefer, you can use ultramarine, but you can mix a little cerulean blue with little red and white and make your own ultramarine. This is the color for the top part of the sky. This is an underpainting I'm putting in before I do the actual painting. I put the darker color first, then white underneath it. Then I blend the two together. Wipe the excess paint off, add a little more white, blend the two together. So I do this in a pattern all the way down until I have a thin coat of acrylic paint as an underpainting. This will help to create a glow in the sky. Next, I'm mixing the light part. I mixed orange and then added a bunch of white until it became as light as the color that's behind the cloud. And I'm mixing that right up into the cloud and down into the water. That's the underpainting for the light and the water reflections. Next, I'm subtracting the shape of the cloud. I'm sketching with a wet washcloth. You could use a paper towel, but washcloths give you a nice nubby cloth texture to help pull the paint up. Dip it in water first because a lot of the acrylic has already dried, so it's not going to lift up. Now here's my value sketch. You can see that the center part of the cloud where the rain is the darkest dark. That's also our focal point. The colors, I'm going to stick close to the colors, but I want to make sure that the painting is about 70-80% sky and maybe 20% water. So I'm going to put in the horizon line first, and I want the horizon line to be way far down in the composition. So the horizon, I'm matching the color. It's going to be the darkest dark. It is my 5 value here. Take your time and match the color. Test it on your photo reference before you paint. I use the side of the brush in a horizontal stroke to create that hard edge of the horizon. That is the only hard edge in the whole painting. All the other edges are going to be broken, so that hard edge of the horizon needs to be as straight as possible. I'm using the same color paint for the bottom part of the clouds. This is an intense dark. It's like indigo or denim color. Now, I want to make sure that that dark color up in the sky is reflected in down below. I'm breaking up the edge of the cloud so that it doesn't look as architectural as the horizon line on the water. I'm keeping a real close eye on the reference photo as I do this. It doesn't have to look perfect at this point. I am going to come back with other colors and fix this up later, but I want to make sure it doesn't get too perfect. Next, I'm putting in a bold shot of pure blue color. So this is just pure cerulean straight out of the tube, and it helps to increase the chroma in the bottom of that cloud and make it have some substance. So I want to reflect this in the water. Anytime I put a stroke of color up in the cloud, I also reflect it in the water. I lifted up any areas that needed to be lighter because with acrylic it will show through. So this is really just an under layer and will show through. Now I'm coming back in with some of the light and negative space painting around that bottom edge of the cloud. I want to make this look very stormy. So I keep the edge of the cloud wet, and then I pull the paint down with the color of the light. And this helps create that illusion of rain. So this rain, as I'm doing this, I'm messing up my horizon line, but that's okay. I can go back and fix it. When I fix it, I turn the canvas so I can get a better straight line. There we go. So now I have my focal point in place. I have that extreme dark, the bottom of the cloud, the rain, and that's really the main goal of the whole painting, is that focal point. Where your lightest light and your darkest dark meet each other is always your focal point, whether you intend it to be or not. So be conscious of that. So next I'm going to mix some of the color in the rest of the water, and just to create the illusion of perspective by making the lines closer together as they're closer to the horizon and further apart as they come closer to the viewer or the bottom of the canvas. So I'm just creating some lines. I'll come back in and break this up with color when I start to put it in the clouds. Okay, same dark color that I used up in the clouds, I'm adding some white to, and I'm making a 4 value. I test it out on my photo reference before I apply it. I may need to tweak it a little, add a little more red, add a little more white, until I get the color I'm looking for. I always test, double check, and then start painting. It usually takes me 3 colors combined together to make one. So don't be afraid to spend some extra time mixing. Don't rely on colors straight out of the tube. They're almost never exactly the right hue, and it's more important to learn how to mix color. So I painted in some of the 4 values with big loopy shapes up in the sky. These are the first layer of found edges, the dark layer inside the cloud. I'm really paying attention to which parts of the cloud are lost edges, which are found edges. I come back in with some lighter color and mix that right behind the found edge, and while it's still wet, and that helps to create some layers up in the sky. So I have the found edge. I come in with a slightly lighter color, which is just adding a little bit of white, and blend it on one side. So that way the edge of the cloud really stands out against the lighter color behind it. This creates voluminous stacks of fluffy clouds up in the storm cloud. Now, I don't want it to be too precise. The clouds are all about lost and found edges, so I try to pay attention. Is this edge a lost edge? Is this edge a found edge? If it's a found edge, I assert it with a slightly darker color. The found edges tend to run into each other and become lost edges. Lost edges tend to get blended into lighter areas inside the cloud. So I go methodically around the cloud and add the lost and found edges, breaking up the big shapes and creating layers of clouds. This takes a little time and finesse, so really spend your time on this. Pause the video and take your time making sure you're following along with the big shapes. Next, I'm going to add some of the lighter colors. I'm putting a little bit of yellow in with the light to create some sense of sunlight. This is like the silver lining of the storm cloud. Every time there's a storm, it is a big, scary, dramatic thing, and then afterwards it's a beautiful day and everything's gotten a drink of rainwater. And that's the kind of feeling I want to portray in this painting. It is a post-election painting. I'm using that silver lining all along the edge of the cloud. I'm putting all kinds of texture on that edge too. I want it to be not a straight edge, not an outline, but a highlight. I also don't want it to be too perfect. You never want it to be like a cookie cutter. I'm messing up and blending some of the dark into the light so that the edge has some texture to it. And then I am reflecting some of the colors that I just put up in the sky down in the water. First, I'm going to use that intense highlight and reflect it into the water. If what you're painting is a little too intense, you can always wipe it out with a paper towel. As long as the acrylic is still wet, you can wipe it with a paper towel. Matching some of the color up in the cloud, softening some of the edges, and then bringing some of that color mixture down into the water. So this will help me get the shapes. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I'm not going to do much else to it. Join me for weekly online painting classes. I do acrylic classes Monday night, pastel on Wednesday night. There's a link in the description. I hope to see you soon.